Hello guys. Welcome to my channel, Jura Tempest Federation. In our previous episode, we have seen the who are dungeon challengers. If you have not watched the previous episode, I will put a link in the description below. To quick warning, this video contains spoilers from a light novel. But before we proceed further, please like, subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell for further updates. In this video, we will see dungeon exploration. Now without further delay, let's proceed further. For the next 3 hours, it'd be best if they tried their hardest and entertained the audience. When the estimated time was reached, we would pull them back out using the items. There were, of course, other forms of rewards. For promotional purposes, we also prepared treasure chests with decent equipment as gifts for everyone. When the labyrinth officially opened, these chests would only be found on the second floor and below, but this time they were up for everyone to grab. We wouldn't be mentioning these inside dealings, of course. Saka only explained what was necessary. Near the end, she began to explain the most important things. Well then, please have a look at this particular item. This is called a revival bracelet. For anyone entering our nation's labyrinth, you must purchase this item. After all, this has an important ability. It can resurrect the dead. Saka explained. There was a wave of gasps from the crowd. How is that possible? And comments along those lines were uttered. Please rest assured. This is very important information, so please pay attention. This item only works inside the labyrinth of our nation. It's useless outside, so please remember that, or you will end up pretty dead if misused. I do hope everyone can understand that it is ineffective outside. That was the most important point. If someone accidentally tried to use it outside, that was not something that you could just get away with. Oops, that didn't work. Moreover, it'd be problematic if they pushed the responsibility onto us, even though it was totally the fault of the user himself. With that being said, there were also certain kinds of people in this world called difficult customers. In order to get it through their thick skulls, we had to clarify this point. We had to be thorough when going through things, in case anyone mistook its use and thought that it could work outside of the labyrinth. We had to ensure that even an idiot knew that it wouldn't work outside to revive people. By that point, even if an accident did happen, it wouldn't be our problem. I didn't want any of that unnecessary responsibility. In my previous life, I found that people would always make the seller accountable for any issues, even if it was their own fault. In this way, to me, idiots who intentionally broke the rules and ended up dying were totally their own doing. But either way, making sure everyone was well informed was still our responsibility. We had to be extra cautious in that regard. And that's all. I once again urge everyone to not use it outside at all. Saka's explanation was very clear for everyone to understand. There we go. Done. The only problem left was for someone to actually experience using it. Normally, people would hesitate when confronted with such a thing. However, with Ramrus's modification of the revival bracelet, any pain and agony could be filtered out when a person was confirmed dead. In addition, there was approximately a 10-second gap between dying and being teleported back to the surface. We intentionally made it this way, so people could use appropriate means to revive themselves. With that being said, there were very few higher magic users that could perform the miracle spell resurrection. By the way, even though a full healing potion was unable to revive the soul of a person, within the labyrinth, the soul would remain in the body. In other words, it was actually possible to resurrect people by repairing their body using the full healing potion. However, I feared that this again might create some misunderstandings in the outside world, which was why we designed it, so that if no proper means of resurrection was applied within 10 seconds, the body would be teleported to the surface. Just as Masayuki said, challenging the labyrinth was like playing a game. With that, the explanation part was concluded. Now we would have someone test out the revival bracelet right here. Then, does anyone want to try it out now? I doubted anyone would, yet Saka asked away anyway. She was a lot bolder than I expected. Ha, you won't die in the labyrinth. That's some real funny shit. I'm not gonna fall for your bullshit rhetoric. The bald strong man, Basin, exclaimed as the others nodded in agreement, as if saying, sure, much agreed. Elan's party also didn't want to volunteer. Isn't that simple enough? Mister over there, how about you step up for the demonstration? Kai the splendacious sword fighter pointed at Miles. He didn't want to do it himself, and instead pointed at someone else to try, but fine, I suppose that was reasonable. The way he spoke, however, was not as respectable. Me, your proposal does make sense, so I shall accept. Miles, now appointed, seemed to have anticipated how things would develop. He didn't look particularly moved by it, especially since we actually had people experience it in real life already. Xian's subordinate, Yamagiri, had been subjected to that experience many times, so Miles also believed that it was completely safe. There was no need to fear given the past experiments. Miles calmly put on the bracelet and entered the labyrinth. At the same time, many challengers also entered with him. Then, I shall attack Mr. Miles here. Saka said as she unsheathed her sword with one hand and prepared herself to attack Miles. Yet Kai interrupted her by taking actions of his own. Don't think you can fool me now, hi. As he finished, he went on to swing his sword and cut off Miles' arm. Wait, Saka shouted to intervene, but it was too late. Arg, Miles cried out as he held his wound. Since pain was reduced in the labyrinth, he wouldn't die from shock, but it was nonetheless unpleasant to have your arm chopped off. Ha 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 ha, look at yourself. Time to die, that bastard dares to mock Miles. I almost lost control, yet I saw a smirk on Miles' face. I immediately calmed down at the scene. At the same time, Kai sliced his sword through Miles' neck. Miles' body suddenly turned into beams of light before disappearing. It was like nothing had happened. He reappeared at the surface, near the temporary entrance at the center of the stage. Even all of Miles' clothes turned into light, and he revived with his original appearance. These scenes were all recorded by the Dryads using the crystal balls, and passed onto the projector as the footage was shown on the large screen. Please have a look everyone, all my limbs are fine as before. Miles was standing there casually, unharmed. His cut arm was restored to its original state, bringing us the best performance of the day. Oh. The crowd gave off waves of loud cheers, some even shouting, that was a miracle. Our goal was reached most excellently. It would be troublesome if people suspected that it was some kind of a trick, yet Kai's overreaction proved to have convinced people even more so. For people who still didn't believe at this point, we would just have to invite them to experience it for themselves. However, at the end of the day, these mechanisms were for the worst-case scenario. We would still prefer it if people acted cautiously. Being unable to die was all well and good, but it was best if they didn't have to experience it in the first place. That's why we only needed to wait for adventurers who visited the labyrinth to leak such news. Some nutjob challengers would probably want to try it out themselves. But that wouldn't be a problem either. The point was to encourage people to challenge the dungeon. Thanks to Miles, our scheme came into fruition. As expected from Miles, he had balls of steel. This was exactly the outcome I wanted, which was also why I tolerated Kai's actions. It cost Miles to endure such horrible things. I would have to go give him my thanks later, I thought to myself, while watching the screen. Now then, you may start exploring the labyrinth. Once you step inside, you will find yourself in a world of unknowns. What will these brave adventurers encounter there? Saka began to broadcast the footage on stage. The large screen began to show the status of each group. As the broadcast proceeded smoothly, it also revealed the interior design of the labyrinth. Saka's commentary was highly immersive. I was inking. She sure pays attention to details as I also tracked each team's movement. Let's look at Bassin's team. The labyrinth walls were designed to have uniform stonework. Bassin's party was moving on the first floor. I thought they would at least have someone sketch down maps, yet it seemed that none of them had the slightest intention of taking notes, nor were they putting markers on the walls. All they were doing was casually strolling down the aisles while shooting the breeze and laughing. Is this really okay? Cave exploration was a thing in this world, and stuff like taking contracts by people to exterminate monsters deep in the forests wasn't uncommon. In times like this, how did they manage to achieve their goals? Could it be that they had hired people to lead the way every single time? Why are we always walking down the same road? What the hell, these are all quadrilaterals. Boss, didn't we just walk along this road as well? Before my worries could have been relayed to them, these people were already lost. We did mention that the area was extremely wide during the explanation, weren't they listening? Bassin, this is bad. This labyrinth is larger than we imagined. Ah, I get it. The first floor of the labyrinth alone was around 250 meters long on each side. We did mention that it was big, but these people seemed to have thought it would be smaller. It is likely that they didn't think the area was all that large when they heard that the labyrinth was a man-made facility underneath the Colosseum. I suppose that was fine, as long as they helped with the promotion, it would be okay. But we couldn't let them die on the first floor right out of the gates. If they ended up making it look like the labyrinth was so unfairly difficult, then no one would want to challenge it. I hope that they could at least progress to a certain extent. They could come back if killed anyway. The bracelet had the savior function. Using that mechanic, they could escape from the labyrinth, but they would be considered killed. Alpha and the other Dryads would then go to assist. This time they were even accompanying all of the contestants, so the Dryads could forcefully teleport them back to the surface, if need be. That's why I hope they would relax a bit and progress through the labyrinth carefully, and maybe even start taking it seriously from now on. That's it for today, guys. See you next one. For further more update, please like, share and subscribe. And do not forget to push notification bell.